Well,
What is going on, everybody? Happy Wednesday. Welcome to episode 17, the Limitless Mindset. Today we're talking about 5 steps to manifesting any goal, any dream, anything you want to achieve. And we're on step 5 today. Step 5 is do your part and trust God to do his, or the universe, whatever you prefer. With that being said, if you have not watched the first 4 episodes, I recommend, or the first 4 steps, go watch those. Those are really important for you to understand what step 5 is. But without further ado, we're going to dive into step number 5 today. Before we do, I have a couple awesome special guests on with me today, Mr. John Bodnar and Mr. Timothy Cruz. So without further ado, I'm going to let those guys go ahead and introduce themselves so you guys can have a better understanding of who you're listening to and why you should actually listen. So, John, if you don't mind starting out, who are you, my friend?
yes, my name is John Bodnar, and I'm a coach at BSB Wealthy Body Coaching. My purpose in life is to show people that they do have power to make the choices that they know they need and want to make in their lives, to become the best version of themselves, but ultimately have power over their life, over their circumstances, and most importantly, over how they feel about themselves.
Hell yeah. Thank you for being on here today. And Mr. Timothy Cruz, do you mind sharing who you are with the people out there as well?
Absolutely. What's up, guys? My name is Coach Tim, another coach over at BSB Wealthy Body Coaching. I'm a self-admitted nerd and meathead, so I love reading books and learning a lot, and also picking up heavy stuff and setting it back down again and again and again. But really, my true passion, my true purpose is helping people realize the best version of themselves. And when I say that, I mean tapping in and manifesting, to no, all puns intended, I guess, manifesting the strongest version of themselves, whether that be emotional strength, spiritual strength, physical strength, but more importantly, mental strength, and having that autonomy and that control and that power to make decisions and actually control the direction of their life. So that's really what gets me going. That's what wakes me up in the morning. That's what keeps me just passionate and fiery about learning every aspect about this whole thing we call health and fitness.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. All right. Well, happy to have both of you guys on here today. Let's go ahead and let's dive in. Episode 17, step number 5, do your part and trust God to do his. So what does that really mean? Well, your part is to know the why and the what you're doing, and God's part is to know the when and the how. And so without getting into too much detail, I'm going to start out with just Tam, if you mind, start us out. What does that mean? It's our job to know the why and the what, and it's God's part to know the when and the how.
So I believe the important thing of knowing the why, of like you understanding the why, it comes back to a few episodes ago with making a decision to commit, right? And generally, when we make a decision, especially if we want to change something in our life, there has to be a deep reason underneath. Like we peel back the curtain, and even when we talk to clients or people that we're working with, most people want to look good naked, or they want to feel confident in their body, but that's not the true reason why. Like there's generally something deeper and personal as to what and why they're fighting today to make a change. So identifying the why is paramount. And the what is, I mean, that's more of the directional goal of like, what are we trying to accomplish? Like, are we trying to lose weight? Are we trying to get stronger? Are we trying to change our relationship with food? Are we trying to change our relationship with ourselves, our confidence, so on and so forth? That is the what. That's the X's and O. And when we talk about God's parts of the when and how, that comes more back to the law of gestation and being patient and just committing to the process and letting it manifest if you do the what, time in and time out, if that makes any sense.
Yep, exactly. And I think even to kind of go on that same point you just made right there is it's really having the faith, right? It's having faith that like ultimately when you go to set out to a goal that you have never accomplished before, by definition, you've never accomplished it before. So like you're not going to know how to accomplish it, because if you did, you have already accomplished it. And probably you're not going to know how long it's going to take either. So the win, because again, you never accomplished it. And so that's where you ultimately must have the faith that, again, you trust God, trust the universe, trust yourself to just know that as long as you know the why and the what, eventually you'll figure out the how, and eventually it'll come to fruition. So it's not a matter if, it just becomes a matter of when.
Mm-hmm.
John, follow that up. When you see this, what do you see?
I see an example in my life, actually. So, last summer when I was unemployed and not in a good place, not happy about me, I knew I just needed to do something. I didn't even necessarily know what the what was, but I certainly knew why. And I knew that the path I was going down was unhappiness, was depression, was anxiety. And really I was already there on the path, and it was just going to get worse. And once I saw an opportunity to become a personal trainer, that's what I thought I was going to be, as a personal trainer guy who hangs out in the gym all day. Like, oh, that's great, because it's fitness, even through all of this, fitness was going well for me. And so I got the why and I got the what, and I just took a leap of faith. I was like, this is what I need to do. And after my first conversation with you, Logan, I was like, okay, yeah, this is it. And so I don't know what it looks like, but I know that this is the path for me to take. And so now I am doing the what, and my why is, well, it's a lot bigger than it used to be. My why is no longer to not be depressed. It's to accomplish bigger and better things. But if I had never taken that leap of faith, I would still be on a path that I don't want to be on, or I would have taken some other leap that I knew wasn't right, but took it anyway. And so once you have the why and the what figured out, it makes it easier to see the when and the how when they're presented to you, but you're not just going to pull them out of nothing.
Yeah. And it's cool because I just had an interview with one of our clients yesterday, and it was cool to hear him talk about his story. And he just realized that he needed to make a change, right? He knew why he needed to make the change. He had a good reason why to make the change. And he knew that he had to do something different, right? He had to eat better. He had to exercise. He didn't know how to exercise or eat better, so he just started doing something. And ultimately, that eventually led him to seeing some progress, and then eventually opening up his eyes, or helping him realize that maybe he needed some help from coaching. That's how he got to us eventually. But he never would have got to us if he wouldn't have started back here, right? I think it's important, just starting, doing something. And that's honestly, it goes back probably this one probably intertwines a lot with set number 2, which is like just taking bold action, right? Because taking bold action, like inherently, just allows you to move forward, and then as you move forward, you're able to start to see the road a little bit clearer. So let's go to the next slide here. And so, yeah, so have faith that God or the universe is manifesting the how, whether it looks like it or not. You don't know your goal. You don't know how your goal manifests. You don't need to. Simply take action towards your goal. So obviously, we talked a lot about this in the past slide. But again, John, I'll start with you on this. What do you see when you see this slide?
Okay, actually, I have a really good analogy that I'm super excited about, because I was driving through the fog today on my way home this morning, and I could hardly see it. Like it was really, really bad. But of course, like things started to become visible as I kept moving forward. So going back to what you just said about, the path becomes clear as long as you do something, as long as you take action and move forward. That's exactly what we're talking about here. I had faith that the road was still there, that the road signs were going to show up, that I'd be able to see vehicles in front of me before I hit them, those types of things, and I just kept going. And so to do that in your life requires faith, requires confidence, maybe even a little bit of logic at times. And ultimately, if you do that, you will be rewarded for it. You don't know how, you don't know when, but it's going to happen. So continue to take action and trust your gut in the meantime to tell you if that action is right or not.
That's awesome. Great analogy. I couldn't quite tell if you started with analogy or started with real life, but I liked it.
Well, true. Yeah, true. It was real life, but it's a good analogy. Like we're all walking through the fog.
That's awesome. Tim, what are your thoughts when you see this slide?
So I think the slide is pretty self-explanatory. So I'm gonna use a real life example, a story that kind of depicts this pretty well. So growing up, me and my dad would always go on fishing trips, hikes, and one of our favorite hikes that we used to love to do was up in Grayville, California, like kind of outside of Tahoe a little bit. It was a lake called Rock Lake, and it was like a 4 or 5 mile hike. Pretty, I don't know, it wasn't terribly intense, but it was fairly steep. And we would always go up, we'd follow the trail to go up. And then he always had this shortcut that he learned from his dad that we would take coming back, where we'd cut through the bush. Well, when I became a man, like I was 18, I took some of my friends up there. I had 3 buddies and a girl that we had just met who knew us like for 2 days. And we decided to head up to Rock Lake. We're going to go hiking, and we get done swimming at the lake and we're headed back. And I'm going to take the shortcut, but I've never done it on my own. I've never done the shortcut on my own. I've only followed my dad through the shortcut maybe a handful of times. So I'm pretty sure I know where I'm going. I know the direction I need to go. And so I take my friends and I pretend like I know exactly where I'm going, because I have to sell them on like, hey, follow me through the woods here. And we head off, and sure enough, like we end up right on the face of this like 40-foot cliff, where there's like no way down except for to scale down this cliff. So we all start scaling on the cliff. I'm pretending like this is totally part of the shortcut, which it's not. I missed it by a long shot. We get down to the bottom of the cliff, and once we get there, we have two options to go. And so of course I pretend like I know where I'm going, which I don't. And we head one way. And sure enough, we end up in thick buckbrush, which I don't know if you guys are familiar with buckbrush, but it's like, this was like, oh, like taller than me. And it's all spiny and it's thick and it's just nasty. Like it's terrible. Like you can't walk through it or it's just going to tear your shirt apart. It's going to cut you. So we end up having to get up on our belly and literally army crawl for like a mile through this freaking buckbrush. And meanwhile, while we're going through the buckbrush, we feel all these like tickly things like all on top of us. We don't know what they are, but it's something that's definitely crawling on us. And by the time we get done, we realize we're covered. It was some type of moth was just being hatched at this time, and they lay eggs in the buckbrush. We were covered in these like green worms that were all over our bodies. And we didn't realize what was happening until we got halfway through the buckbrush. We're too far in to go back. So we have to commit and keep going all the way through the buckbrush. Long story short, we get to the end of the buckbrush, and sure enough, the path, the actual trail is cutting right in front of the buckbrush. So we just hop on the trail. I completely pretend like that was what was supposed to happen. And either way, like the moral of the story, the point of the story is I had faith that I knew where I wanted to go. I didn't know exactly how to get there, because I didn't remember the exact twists and turns. And I just had faith, confidence, and I just kept going in that direction. And eventually I found my way to the path. And right now we always tell it as like a really fond, like funny, like good story. And if we just would have followed the path back, it would have been like just another trip up to Rock Lake. It would have been like we went swimming. But we always tell it, and it's always laughing like, oh, Tim and his damn shortcuts, like those kind of stories. So I think the moral is really just, if you don't know where you're going, I knew where I wanted to get to. I just had to have faith to keep going and just adapt to the obstacles, the literal obstacles that were in my way. And eventually I got to the path and I ended up to my end goal, which was the car.
Wouldn't have been as good a story if you just stayed on the path. Well, let's just put it that way.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I love that. You know, you guys all told stories. I think I'm gonna tell a story too. So honestly, the first thing that pops in my head is when I was in high school, is actually when I started lifting weights. And so it was actually during advanced PE. And to be completely honest with you, like when I signed up for advanced PE, this was between my sophomore and junior year. You know, when you're a freshman and sophomore in high school, you still actually do PE. Like we still played like all the games and things like that. But when you become a junior, they have this thing that's called advanced PE. And I was like, I literally just thought it was like, you know, PE, or like we did cooler things. Well, it turned out it was actually lifting weights. And I was like, well, I was a little bit disappointed. It was actually like, it was an accident I got into weight training. But what I found was like how it impacted my life. And like it literally transformed my life almost, like I would say overnight, but like in the first like couple weeks, like I knew that there was something here. And it changed my life so much that by the time I was a senior, you put inside your yearbook like what you want to be when you grow up, right? Like you want to be an astronaut, or you want to be a software developer, or you want to be whatever, right? Like in my yearbook, I actually put I want to be a personal trainer. And I have a really funny picture, like where me as a senior, like long hair with like hair flipped up, whatever, right? But anyway, and so when I went on to college, I was like, okay, that was my goal to be a personal trainer. Well, somehow, some way, I ended up in Butte, Montana. My goal was to play college football. It didn't end up happening, but I suddenly realized that like they were in engineering school, and aside from engineering, like they had literally almost no other degrees that had anything to do with any sort of fitness or whatever it may be. And so after the first semester, I ended up transferring to Montana State University, ended up in an exercise science program. And I remember the very first semester of exercise science, okay, exercise science, like that's gotta be the thing that's gonna get me to be a personal trainer. And it was a lot of sciences. And like, I completely transparent, like I was not good at math or science, but I wanted to be a personal trainer. So I'm like, okay, I gotta do this thing. And so as I was looking at the list of all the classes I had to take, there were things like physics, there were things like anatomy and physiology, they were like calculus classes, chemistry, right? I had never taken any of these classes in high school. I was like literally the kid who just got by. And so my very first semester of taking some of these classes like chemistry and physics and math classes, I legitimately had to withdraw. I didn't fail them because like they had they have W's in college where you can like, once you get to a certain point, you realize you're not going to pass. Like I just had lots of W's. And it's like, okay, I'm not going to pass this class. But I came to this, I literally came to, and I call it my come to Jesus moment. I was literally walking across campus, sitting there like, oh my gosh, I can't even pass this the very first semester, I can't even pass these classes. Like I'm literally in my freshman year, I'm like, what am I going to do? Right. I can remember the moment I'm walking to this, it's called Games Hall. If you guys have ever been to MSU, it's like the chemistry building, or at the time it was anyway. And I remember having this come to Jesus moment. I was like, man, like, what's like, what are my options, right? I can either like quit because I have no idea how to do any of this stuff. I don't think I can do it, or I can just continue to push forward. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't have like quitting would have meant like going. I had no idea what quitting would have done. I actually didn't have a fallback place. I couldn't run home. I didn't have another job to go to. I didn't really have any other opportunity. So the only option really was to continue forward. And so I continued forward. I found ways to pass the classes I needed to pass, literally just by the skin of my teeth. Didn't excel, nothing crazy like that. But I got to my very last semester of college, and I started realizing that all my friends who graduated with exercise science, they actually weren't personal trainers. They didn't get into the personal training degree. Actually, most of them were trying to go to physical therapy, which again, my grades were not good enough to go to physical therapy. So I was like, shoot, like I'm about to get a degree in exercise science and work my ass off. By the way, like I worked my ass off to get by, I should say, but I wasn't still going to get a freaking personal training job. And I had applied for personal training jobs up to that point, and like tried to apply for front desk positions, cleaning positions. I couldn't get anything. And so at that point, I did the only thing I logically could think of is I just went and I found somebody I worked for free, right? And so it wasn't until I actually worked for free that I got my foot in the door. And by working for free for 6 months, I ended up getting a paying job in the fitness industry, which was just front desk position. I made $7 an hour. But then after doing the front desk position, I eventually got myself into a personal training position. But I think the whole moral of the story is like, if I just would have worked for free out of college or out of high school, I probably could have got a personal training position a lot faster. But I thought that I had to go to college. I thought I had to go through all this other stuff. And ultimately, like, knowing I know now, I literally could have just done that before. But I think the key to the whole story is that, like, I had no idea how to get there, but at that time, like, I just knew that I needed to do something. And so while college is my path, when people ask, like, how to become a personal trainer, like, I wouldn't recommend the path I went down because I know what I know now is different. But maybe like John got into the industry a lot different than I did. Tim got into the industry actually very similar to what I did. And so ultimately, all it matters is that you're taking steps towards your goals. And as long as you continue moving forward, like all of a sudden it'll open up what you need to do, right? So I'm sitting there with, this college degree, and I still am working for free to get my foot in the door. And it's just ironic how all that works, right?
What year was that, Logan, when you started college there? Because I know we're about the same age.
I started college in 2007 at MSU, the spring semester.
Okay. Yeah, we were there the same year. We started. Yeah.
That's awesome. So that's my story of becoming a personal trainer, right? All right. And at times, so next slide here. At times you'll get to the end of time that you had set for yourself and your goal wasn't manifested. Yet all this means is that your guess on gestational timing was off. So you must celebrate your progress, remind yourself of how far you have come and all that you have learned in the process. Like reset the gestational period and keep moving forward with faith. So Tim, tell me your thoughts when you see this on the idea of like timing and like if you don't reach your goal on the timeline that you set for yourself.
This happened so many times in my life. It's like it's really easy to detach yourself from the timeline when it keeps happening. But I think this brings it back to the why. Like, why are you doing it in the first place? Like, if that's powerful enough, this shouldn't matter that much because you're just going to keep evolving and keep growing and keep moving towards your desired outcome. So probably the biggest example I have is, so I started bodybuilding at 19 competitively. And I had a dream of, because I told my parents I was going to be a pro in like 2 years. Like by the time I was 21, I'm going to be a pro. And I remember like the first 2 years, I was freaking obsessed. Like I was training 3 times a day. I was doing everything and anything that a human being could do to become a professional. And I remember my coach at the time, like I hired a personal trainer who also was a bodybuilder as well. He was personal training me 5 times. I was putting in all of my money into this too, by the way. Like I was paying him like $70 a session 5 times a week. So like all of my money was going towards this. And I competed 3 times in that on my second year. So my 21st birthday, I competed 3 times that year. And I remember like getting to the final show and I thought like I was going to win. There was going to be a national qualification. Like I felt like I looked amazing. And I got on stage and I ended up placing like 4th. and I was just leveled. Like I was crushed. I remember going backstage and literally like my coach gave me a hug and told me I worked my ass off, and I just started just sobbing. Like I was just wrecked. And because I thought, okay, maybe at the time, not having the emotional intelligence that I have now, or the maturity, I thought that that meant, oh, I must not have the genetics to do this damn thing. Well, it kind of it slowed things down a little bit. I got life a little bit more in perspective, started focusing on school a little bit more, started focusing on my career. Come full circle, I guess it's been over 10 years now. Now I am going to nationals, and now I am like, it's just taken about a decade longer than I thought it was going to. And then as you meet people throughout the industry, you find out that only the genetic freaks like the Ronnie Colemans of the world, or the Phil Heaths, or the Jay Cutlers, they're the only ones that turn pro when they're 18 or 19. Like that's one out of a million. Most people, it takes 10 to 20 years to get to that level to turn pro. So it made me feel a lot better about myself. Is my gestation period was just way off, just way off.
And so so I think that's a great point. So like when your gestation period is way off, like it's a little bit off, it's way off. Like what are some ways to actually handle that when, like, let's say for example, someone's like, okay, I want to lose 50 pounds. I want to lose it in 2 months, right? And like they actually believe that they can do it, but they only lose 20 pounds, right? Like what advice would you give to that person?
So my personal advice, this is what I tell myself, is you shouldn't be in love with or married to your goal. You should be married and in love with the process, because understanding that this is going to take time, because yeah, we can lose 50 pounds in 2 months. That's actually not that hard. But the way that we have to do it to lose 50 pounds in 2 months is not the correct way. Our foundation is going to be completely built on sand, and you're ultimately going to gain that 50 back. So if we fall in love with the process, meaning the day in, day out grind, the eating, the sleep, the routine, like how do we fit this into our lifestyle? If you fall in love with that, ultimately you will get to your goal, and then you will be able to maintain that forever, right? So like if the goal is to lose 50 pounds, like that's not the real goal. The real goal is to lose 50 pounds and stay 50 pounds down. So I keep telling myself, and I tell my clients that have these maybe unrealistic expectations, that look, we're going to do this the right way, but really I want you to get married to the process, get married, like fall in love with the journey, because this journey doesn't end. The journey is forever if you want to maintain that result.
I think it's really important to understand, because when you're able to marry the process or get love the process, then all of a sudden timing becomes less important, because it's not like a chore, it's not a pain, it's not disruption. It just is. It's just life. And if you find enjoyment in it, like that's the key. Like that's actually the key to any success, is finding joy, finding bliss in what you're doing, because then it's like, who cares? Like I plan on doing this forever because it's just freaking fun.
Right.
And then lies the difference between, the people who stay in the game for a long period of time versus those who don't. And that's reference to fitness, but it can be in reference to anything. It can be reference to business. It can be reference to relationships, right? If you're tired, like if you literally like hate having conversations with your wife, like how long is that going to last for? Like I'm serious. Like if you hate having conversations with your kids, if you hate having conversations with, whether it's teammates or employees or your boss, whatever it may be, like how long is that relationship actually going to last? Right?
No. I mean, if you think about like marriage, if you think about divorce rates, right, they're like 51%.
Yeah.
And generally the courtship process, or like when you're dating and when you get engaged, like think about how a man pursues and cherishes his fiance. Like they're all about it. It's all about date night. It's all about wine and dine. It's all about like telling her how beautiful she is. But the moment they get married, it's like, cool, I win. And then they stop all the things that it took to get married. And they wonder why we get divorced 51% of the time. And I'm raising my hand. Like I've been divorced. Like I know this personally. Like those things change if you're not in love with the process.
Yeah. And I think one thing that I picked up, this is actually something I picked up this week from my wife, is like when you do the courtship process, we oftentimes will always look for greatness. We always look for the positive person. We look for like all the good things. When we get married, we almost look for all the negatives, all the nitpicky things. And it's something that I noticed with my wife this weekend, and I called her out on it in a super nice way. But I basically said, like, I literally had this example with her right now. I was like, like we can have 10 things that you love about me, and there's one thing that bugs me, like, or there's one thing that bugs you about me, but you focus on that one thing that bugs you, like it outweighs all those 10 things that you really like about me. And it's like what we get, like what we focus on, we end up getting, right? Law of attraction 101. And so I think it's really important to also understand that in the same, so I'll make that transition from relationship to fitness. Like if you continue to focus on that, like you didn't make it, that that you're a failure, well, that's what you will perpetuate, right? But if you're like, oh man, like I'm doing good, right? Look at how much better I am than I was last year. I've lost 20 pounds in 2 months. I said I'm going 50 pounds, I lost 20 pounds, right? And if you're able to focus on the positive part of it, you're able to focus on all the good things you did, it allows you to stay in the game, allows you to continue to be happy and be like, I'm doing good, rather than like, oh, I didn't hit 50 pounds. So ultimately you get to make the choice. What are you going to focus on, right? You're going to focus on all the nitpicky things that your spouse does, or are you going to see greatness in them? And I think that's really been really helpful for me on the relationship side. But if you can translate that into almost anything, but in this case, translate it to your fitness and celebrate your progress rather than focus on becoming short, you'll stay in the game. You'll enjoy the process a hell of a lot more. So, John, come in on
You
that.
guys hit that pretty dang hard. Going into relationships a little bit. One thing that my wife and I have done that's extremely valuable is just ask, like, okay, what do you love about me? I don't care if I've heard it 1,000 times. I don't care if I know exactly what all the answers are going to be. It still just allows us to have that focus on the positive. And when you talk about like, oh, I love how something I love about my wife is I love how organized you are, right? Like that can be something to fall in love with because it's something that is helpful for me. Who's not like I'm organized in a lot of ways, not in some other ways, right? But of course, like I love your kindness, your emotional intelligence. I love how you treat me. Like these are the types of things that the more you talk about it, the more you notice it, and you don't even notice the nitpicky things anymore. Or when you do, you're like, oh, it doesn't even matter. Like maybe I can talk to her about leaving a dish out now and then. But instead, if you just focus on leaving the dish out, that's all you're going to see. You will no longer see the emotional intelligence. You'll no longer see the organizational skills, how you're actually treated well, and yeah, you end up down this path of divorce or just resentment either way.
Yeah, and one thing that we do with our clients, like on our coaching calls, and we even do this on our team calls as well, is we always start those meetings out with like, what are you grateful for, or what are your wins, or a combination of both. Because like when you're searching for gratitude, you can't find bad stuff, or I shouldn't say that. Like when you seek gratitude, you find gratitude. When you seek negative, you seek losses, you'll find losses. If you seek wins, you find wins. And so ultimately just like helps us and our clients reshape their thought process, because like, I'm having a bad day, but like, what's a win today? Now, so you start to think about wins. So all of a sudden you change your thought process around like all this, the bad stuff or the negative stuff or all the like the day-to-day stuff we're going through. All of a sudden it shifts your mindset. Okay, then you're constantly looking for wins. And I think that is something that's so powerful, and it's something that we do every single day, something that I do right when I wake up in the morning. And it's like, and I know Tim he talks about it a lot, but when you're able to like look for gratitude and find gratitude in your day, like it helps eliminate your stressors. It helps eliminate all the negatives, because ultimately you can have gratitude, or you can have I don't know what the other word is. What would be an opposite of gratitude? Entitlement? I don't know. But you can't have both, basically. And so I think that's why it's super important to always look for gratitude and look for wins. Okay, so let's talk about the laws that play a role in this doing your part and trusting God to do his. So the first one is law of faith. So really trust the laws, trust God, trust the universe, believe in your goal with unwavering faith. And so before we actually dive deep on the rest of these ones, I want to talk about that one. So I think this one is like, it's probably fundamental to everything we do. And I think Tim talked about this either last week or the week before. I can't remember which one it was, but like law of faith is almost like the cornerstone of all these laws, because when you don't have faith, like it just, then you almost have nothing. You have no why, right? And so Tim, I'll kind of let you take this one over, but like, why is having this law of faith and having this belief in your goal, like why is it so important?
I'm probably just literally going to repeat exactly what I said a few weeks ago, but so the law of faith, I think this is paramount, because especially any goal that's worth having is going to take consistent work. It's going to get consistency and effort and dedication. There's probably going to be an element of sacrifice and discomfort that is involved in anything that is worth having. And if you don't have faith that it's actually going to happen, the likelihood of you actually doing the things you need to do on a consistent basis or putting in the effort required to achieve said goal is really low. So like Logan, if I told you you are going to be a billionaire in 10 years, like 100% guaranteed, and you knew that with every fiber in your being, but you had to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week for those 10 years to become a billionaire, if that was something that you actually wanted to get, like if that was your true goal, would you do the thing that it took to become a billionaire?
Absolutely.
Absolutely. But if you had 50%, like let's say it was a 50% shot, 50-50, and it still required 12 hours a day, but there's a 50% chance that you're not going to become a billionaire, would you do the things you need to do?
50% effort, probably.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Because let's be honest, like 7 days a week, 12 hours a day, you're giving up a lot of family time, a lot of personal time. You're giving up a lot of maybe pleasure, experiences, things that are important to people on a very visceral level. You're not going to give those up without assurance that you're going to get the goal. So like, for instance, we were just talking about this morning. We were going through a call review with a client of ours, and like the main limiting thing for her was she didn't really believe that she could get the goal. And after talking to Logan, and Logan coached her up quite a bit during this call, like he broke, or I should say he gave her some belief. She borrowed some belief from him because she didn't really have it at the time. She borrowed some belief. She started the program, and wouldn't you know, she hit that goal that she's had for 3 years in less than 7 weeks. She'd been working at the same goal for 3 years. And it was the only real change. I mean, yeah, we gave her guidance. We gave her the tools that she needed to be successful and accountability. But the main difference was she believed that she could actually hit that goal. In fact, she now believes that she can get more than she originally thought she could get. So she does the work. Like she was on vacation last week. It was actually a work trip, but she was out of town. And that's like a prime time for people to go off plan, gain weight. And she actually lost 4 pounds last week.
Nice.
And that was something that she was like, she sent me a video of her doing push-ups. Was another one of her goals, was to be able to do a set of 10 push-ups. She sent me a video of it and was like all the emojis, the celebratory emojis. And she's like, and I lost 4 pounds while on vacation and I stayed true to my plan. And to me, I'm like, yes, that was not me. That was not me as the coach. That was you and your belief and your ability to get the damn thing done. And for one, props to her. But two, that's true with all of us. That's true with all of us. If you absolutely believe it, you are going to be consistent. You're going to do the do every single day because you know the result is worth it, because you know it's going to be there.
Yeah. And I mean, just to hit this one, because I think it's so important, is if there's one thing that I think can like, if you really want to be successful in fitness or whatever it is, like it's having faith, it's having belief. And like if you can find a way to sell yourself that is going to happen 100% of the way, like that's the key. Like the tactics almost are irrelevant if your belief is not there. But if your belief is there, I still think the tactics are relevant because you'll eventually figure out the tactics. Just like I told you guys with like we all three told our stories, right? We had these moments in our lives, like that all our tactics were different, but ultimately we still got to the same destination, right? Those are all different. Our goal is the same. Our tactics are different. Doesn't matter. And I think that the one thing is the center is this law of faith. It's having this belief. It's like, if you believe you can do it, will you do it? It's like, yeah. Like if you really want it, then you will. It's the only reason you wouldn't do it is because like, you don't think you're actually going to get it. You don't think it's going to happen, or you don't have belief. And so I think that's so important. So important. John, if you want to add to why you think the law of faith is important, or maybe you don't think it's important, tell me.
Well, I didn't coming into the call, but you guys have really persuaded me that it is.
Good.
Yeah. No, as someone who has struggled with faith in himself, really just to tack onto it. Yes, if you have faith in yourself that what you're doing is working, that the result is worth it, you will accomplish it. Whether it's with fitness, with wealth, with relationships. I have something I'm not going to share today, but I do have a story in mind of like, I just had faith that a very difficult situation was going to work out, and I've been willing to put in the work to make it happen. I know that doesn't mean a lot without the example, but it's still something that I had every reason in the world to give up, and I still chose not to. And because I knew it was worth it. So I knew it was worth it. I knew how to fix it. and I'm still fixing it to this day. But ultimately, it's those types of decisions, that type of faith, that allows you to have the life that you actually want. You just have to be willing to believe in it, and to choose to believe in it.
And it's also a good segue into the next law, which is law of gestation. And so again, without obviously going into too much detail, but like what gives you the ability to continue to trust in this goal, something that would have been easily something to give up on, and how that relates to the gestational timing of it, and like how soon you thought it was going to happen versus when it didn't happen versus like what your expectation now of when it happens.
Actually, I've gone into it with no expectations, no gestation, just understanding that every little improvement needs to be celebrated. Every stepping stone is celebrated, and that's what has kept me going. So like, okay, it's better than a week ago, better than a month ago, better than a year ago. So it's been time since I've been going through this at this point. And by looking back, that's allowing me to keep moving forward. And then of course, by looking forward as well, like, hey, look at what this type of fighting will provide for my life at the same time. But if I didn't look back and see the progress that's been made, I wouldn't have faith in what I'm doing now, because it still feels hard. It's still there's a long way to go. If you want to talk about weight loss, okay, I've lost 30 pounds, I still got 30 more. That's going to feel like a big journey, 30 more pounds to lose, but you've already done it once. So if you didn't have that context, you wouldn't have the faith that you can continue to go. It'd be a lot harder to find it.
And so Tim, so basically what he said in there is that he actually didn't set a timeline for when he did this goal accomplished, right? So he basically just extended the gestational period infinitely, right? Just like it doesn't matter when it happens, it's just going to happen. And so tell me, like, kind of your thoughts on maybe like what was that? It was Flash.
Yeah, that was all you.
Sorry. So can you tell me your thoughts on that? Whether you see that as being like a positive thing, like in this situation, it sounds like it's a positive thing, but where do you actually see that also potentially being like not something that people should use in other situations?
So I think that is definitely contextual upon the goal. Like for instance, if it's something you've never done before, I think it is probably wise to not put some kind of limit of time on it. However, I do think, so I attended a mastermind or a conference. This was probably 5-6 years ago. It was called the Fitness Business Summit. It was down in Orange County. And the guy was speaking, his name was Craig Ballantyne. And he challenged us, whatever goals we had, these were all financial business goals, that he wanted us to double them and cut the timeline in half. And the reason for that, I don't know if you guys are familiar with like the 10X rule, the book by Grant Cardone, is that our goals, first off, need to be big enough to scare/excite us, right? Because that's what really drives motivation. That's what really drives almost like a necessitous behavior of doing the things that you need to do. Plus, whatever effort you think it's going to take, it's probably going to take 10 times that effort. So plan on doing 10 times the things you need to do. But for me, when I set a goal and I put a timeline on it, and mind you, these are goals that maybe I have accomplished before, or things I have a pretty good knowledge of, like an appropriate gestational period. When you put a timeline on it, a specific goal, like as far as the gestational period, it bodes almost like I said, like a necessitous type behavior, like some kind of urgency. Like when your goal, let's say like 50 pounds, right? If we have 50 pounds to lose, and let's say I'm working with Logan, and I know Logan's an expert. I know he's really good at getting people in shape. And he says, you got 50 pounds to lose. Here's an appropriate weight of loss, which we know is about 1% of your body weight per week. So for most people, it's between 1 pound to 2 pounds per week. So we're looking at right around 20 to 24 weeks is what we're looking at to lose that 50-pound goal. Now, if I said that's about, what is it, 20 to 20, it's like about half a year, right? So about 6 months. Now, if I said I wanted to do that indefinitely, and my girlfriend came over and she wanted to have pizza, or, I'm tired this morning and I know I need to work out at 5 a.m. I'm more likely to say yes to the pizza and no to the workout, and I'll just do it tomorrow because I don't have a timeline on my goal, right? But if I know, like for me, for instance, I've got 4 weeks to get ready for this competition, like I got to do my shit today. Like there is no waiting till tomorrow. So it kind of plants that seed of urgency. It lights a fire under your butt, so to speak. So I think in certain contexts, you need a timeline. You need like maybe a realistic but aggressive timeline. And for things like for me, for instance, like financially, certain goals I've never accomplished, I don't know exactly how long it's going to take. So I just need to learn the process. I need to get really good at the process. And then as I learn, then I can start establishing better timelines for what goals are realistic. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And I think this is the analogy we use when we talked about law of gestation back in episode, I don't know what episode it was, but way back in the day, is that like the bigger the goal, the expect a bigger gestational period, right? And so you talked about like if you want to be a billionaire in 10 years, and most likely that's going to be more like 20 years, right? Like it's going to take a lot more time, right? Whereas if you said, you know, how long is it going to take you to make $100,000, you know, like, you know, maybe 1 year would be a good gestational period, right? And so like that's how you can differentiate the two. And the other thing you talked about, which I think is really important, is scaring yourself and setting these goals. And so like if you told me that it was going to take me 10 years to work 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, and the most I could make, you know, and like that, the whole goal was to make $100,000. Be like, dude, like doesn't make sense. Like that's a lot of work for not a lot of money. But then you said $1 billion, all of a sudden you got excited, like, okay, like I'm willing to put the work in, right? Because the goal is bigger. And so I think that's also something we talked about this morning when we were doing our call review. Is just like the bigger the goal set, the more we get excited about it. Like as long as you still think you can do it, but that's all. That's the other key. Is like it's got to be big enough, but you also got to believe in some way you believe you can actually accomplish it, right? And so that may be adjusting the timeline. But like once you believe you can do it and the goal is big enough, that's when you have this beautiful combination of you're like, okay, now it's just go time, right? Which goes into our next in our final law, which is law of harvest, right? So you obviously must actually do the work. You must plant the seeds, right? And so like, just like you said, like if you're not, you know, if you're not doing the things you need to do today, in 4 weeks you show up on stage, like of course you're going to look flat. Of course you're not going to look good because you're not doing the things you're not doing right now, right? So you must plant the seeds, right? You must cultivate them, and like you don't know exactly how that's going to, like how you're going to show up on stage. Like there's so many different factors that play a role, but you know that every single day you're going to do your part to plant the seeds. You're going to show up, do the workouts, do the training, get your sleep, take care of yourself mentally and physically. And along the process, you're going to have some obstacles, you're going to have some bumps in the road, right? But ultimately it's like you just continue to maneuver this process. And again, like you show up on stage and you know, hopefully that this is your time, like this is your opportunity to win that pro card. And you know what, if it's not, you're going to learn the right lessons and do it all over again, right? And like that's ultimately what it's about, is just saying like I'm going to just continue to have faith that it's going to happen. Like I hope it's this time. Like I know much more I know today that I knew 10 years ago, but I guarantee regardless of the outcome, you're going to learn something this time that you're going to take with you into the next show, whether that's going to be a pro show, whether that's nationals. Like it's irrelevant, because the one thing that you do have control over is you're going to learn something, right? So yeah,
I really love the analogy of harvest too. Because if you think about like farmers, like back in like the 1800s, like mass farming wasn't a thing. It wasn't like for distribution. It was to feed your family, right? So there was like no other option other than to learn lessons. Like if you had a harvest and you didn't, you know, plow your field, you didn't plant the seeds, you didn't water, you didn't cultivate, you didn't tend your crop, like you didn't eat. Like it was very important. And if you had a, you know, let's say a pack of, I don't know, what do we have, like magpies or something that fly in and eat all your damn tomatoes, right? And you wiped out all your tomato stock. Okay, you learned a lesson. Now you're going to sit out there with your gun and you're going to make sure to shoot those dang magpies so they don't eat your freaking tomatoes next year. So I love the actual like analogy or the metaphor of harvest, because it truly is like it was a life or death thing for farmers back then. So if you treat your goal like it's life or death, you will learn the dang lesson. You will keep getting better until you're successful, if it means that much to you. I'm trying to remember he's a motivational speaker. He's a black guy. They call him, he's a pastor, but he's always on all of those like Jim Rohn videos or Tony Robbins videos. And he has this like mixtape thing that he does where he tells people, until you want success as much as you need to breathe, you won't be successful.
Dave Goggins, is that who it is?
I can't remember, but he's amazing. Yeah. He's a great motivational speaker.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, no, it's so true, right? And honestly, it's funny because like a lot of like it's maybe the downside of having such an advanced economy and having like lived in such a technologically advanced world is that like we don't have to harvest anything, you know, in our daily lives. Like everything's just provided to us. So when food is just given to us, we can go to a store, like somebody else already did all the work to get there, right? Like everything's so provided for us that we almost lose this concept of harvest and like the process it actually takes. And so like that's why people have these unrealistic expectations when it comes to weight loss, or when it comes to financial gains or relationships, or it may be, is because like we want everything we want it now because like that's the world we live in. But ultimately there's always a harvest in everything that we do. There's no such thing as something for nothing, right? And like I think the more that like this principle can get implanted back into our lives, and we can understand it, all of a sudden it makes the gestation period become easier, right? We have better expectations. I think that's one of the most fundamentally flawed things people make a mistake on when it comes to any sort of goal, is that they usually have unrealistic expectations when they don't hit it. Instead of getting excited about it or learning the right lesson, they get defeated and they say, my genetics aren't good enough, right? My body's not good enough. You know what? I'm just not smart enough. I don't have the right connections. I'm not good at making money, whatever it may be, whatever that limiting belief is. And it just gives them the opportunity to quit because they haven't experienced actual harvest. They haven't experienced the work that it takes to actually plant a seed, water it, shoot the magpies, you know, eat the freaking tomato, you know, like that's like having enough of those wins. And that's why I'm such a believer in it. Like if you can master something like fitness, in your health and wellness side, which I think is the easiest of all the 4 avenues to master, it gives you actually the blueprint to master your wealth, to master your relationships, to master your true fulfillment, your personal power that you have in your life. Because I truly believe that like your health and fitness is the easiest thing. It's the thing you have the most control over. But ultimately, like you must learn the law of harvest when it comes to controlling your body, that's what I believe. So, John, what are your thoughts on law of harvest?
Well, first of all, was it Eric Thomas you're thinking of?
Yeah, Eric Thomas, yeah. Dr. Eric Thomas. Yes, thank you.
Bet. I figured that'd be bothering you, so I want to get that out.
I was going to look it up as soon as
so yes, with the law of harvest, I think one of the best ways to use the law of harvest is to act as if, which we talk about a lot. Like act like I'm going to be a millionaire someday. I have no doubt in my mind about that, but I'm not going to wait to be one to act like one. I'm not going to wait to be a millionaire to track my finances, I don't know, whatever else a millionaire does, right? Still learning. and so like I'm doing those things now for that one thing at the very least. Or like if you want to lose 30 pounds, act like the person who already has lost 30 pounds and is keeping it off at that moment. Be that person now. Because every time you act as if, you are planting seeds. You are that much more guaranteeing your success in hitting your goal. And going back to having a timeline for it, if you do have a timeline for something like health or wealth, then you absolutely will be more likely to continue to act as if, to continue to plant your seeds, because you need to, right? If you don't hit your timeline, or if you don't make an effort to hit your timeline, then you're telling yourself that you're not going to ever do it, and you probably never will. So act as if, and that's one of those powerful ways to plant your seeds, and of course have faith that they will sprout, generate a bountiful harvest. There we go.
There you go. Which ironically, step number 4 is act as if. So if you want to learn more about acting as if, listen to the last episode where we could dive into that in a lot more detail. But Tim, anything that you want to add or to finish this segment out?
No, I think John summed it up perfectly. You know, if you're someone who is struggling, like wants to lose 30 pounds, you don't have to wait until you lose 30 pounds to act like, in fact, you will not lose 30 pounds until you act like someone who's 30 pounds. And that's one of the fundamental breakthroughs that we give everybody that we work with is start living like a fit, healthy, empowered person today.
Yeah. And
you've just planted the first seed. If you do that every day, you're going to be a fit, healthy, empowered person in the future.
Oh yeah. You know, and that's what's about. It's about having that identity shift. We talk about it like it's a wealthy body, right? We give our clients wealthy body identity, this shift in mind that allows them to like see, step outside of themselves, whether they're old them, whether they've been living this life for 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 years, and like step into these new shoes, right? This new identity, and they get to take responsibility for their actions. They get to do the right thing. They get to have the tough conversations, and that's what it's really all about. And kind of what you talked about too is like part of this whole process of becoming a wealthy body is they go through like a breakthrough call, right? Where you actually get to envision your goal. You get to see yourself sitting there with your perfect body in the clothes that you have always seen yourself in, looking in the mirror the way that you've always envisioned yourself. You actually get to be in that. You get to experience, you get to feel it, right? And you get to take that with you, and you get to feel that every single day, every single week, right? We continue to bring it up over and over again until you've seen it so much in your brain that you start to see it here. Like I call it turning the ethereal into the material. You start to see it in like your real life. And the more clear you can get on what you want, and the more you can believe you get there, your actions will start to follow right behind. And so I think that's what it is really powerful is like you get to manifest it. You don't have to wait till you're actually 30 pounds down. You get to like manifest every single morning. You get to wake up and you get to like envision yourself, and you get to like, how does this person act? How do I respond? How do I talk when I'm 30 pounds down? You get to be that person today. You get to manifest. You get to feel those feelings. And so there's no reason to wait. There's no reason to wait to be a millionaire. There's no reason to have the perfect relationship with your spouse. Right? There's no reason to wait to be fulfilled. Like you can have all that stuff today. And that starts with the manifestation. So anyway, this was an awesome one. Do your part. Trust God to do His part. Step number 5 of the 5 steps of manifesting anything. So if you want to manifest anything, all you got to do is follow the 5 steps. Again, we have all 5 steps in the detail, all of them right through here. Number 1, clearly define what you want. Number 2, take bold action towards getting what you want. Number 3, what's number 3? Do you guys remember?
Blanket.
I think it's visualizing what you want. Number 4 is act as if it were reality. And number 5 is just do your part and trust God to do His. Right. So those are the 5 steps manifesting anything you want. Those again, that's the click note version. If you want to go into more detail, go into each of these 5 last episodes. And literally, if you just follow these steps, you will literally get whatever you want. So that's it. Easy peasy. Happy Wednesday, John. Thank you for your time. Tim, thank you for your wisdom. And I appreciate both of you guys for hopping on here. I appreciate you guys for listening. And yeah, we'll be back next week. We'll be doing something new next week. And I'm gonna keep that a secret till next week. But for the last 17 episodes, we've been going deep dive on Limitless and the breakthrough process and manifesting the 5 things, or manifesting goals and going through the laws of conscious creation. And next week we're coming with something new. So anyway, appreciate you guys for being on here, and happy Wednesday, and we'll chat with you guys next week. Bye.
See ya.